today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. They've made it official. Amanda Serrano is set to defend her featherweight titles against her old buddy, former champion Erica Cruz, which we talked about here on the channel a number of times already, based on a rumor I heard more recently 10 days ago. Guess that rumor turned out to be true. Amanda Serrano will step back into the ring to defend her WBO and WBA featherweight titles against Erica Cruz in front of her hometown fans at El Coliseo Roberto Clemente in San Juan, Puerto Rico on January 3rd, 2026, broadcasted globally on DAZN. ESPN confirmed on Tuesday. January 3rd falls on a Saturday, the very first weekend of the coming calendar year. The fight will be a rematch of their exciting and bloody 2023 encounter 2 years ago, which Serrano won by unanimous decision and became Puerto Rico's first undisputed champion in the four-belt era. The rematch, however, will be contested under different rules, as Serrano Cruz 2 will be fought under equal rules to men with 10 3-minute rounds. Why Amanda dropped the WBC title all those years ago, because the WBC would not sanction a women's boxing match for 3-minute rounds. Sky Nicholson speculated that the only real reason Amanda did that was to avoid a fight with her. Sky Nicholson that just lost to Tiara Brown. Exactly. Every time I step into the ring, I fight for all women, for equality, and for Puerto Rico, Serrano said in a statement. Getting to fight 3-minute rounds in a unified world title defense in front of my people will be one of the proudest moments of my career. When I got injured last March, I promised I'd come back to fight in Puerto Rico, and now the moment is finally here. Serrano, 47-4 with 1 draw and 31 knockouts, will be stepping into the ring for the first time since her July loss to undisputed super lightweight champion Katie Taylor, which headlined an all-women's fight card on Netflix. Although she went 0-3 with Taylor, their rivalry was instrumental to the current boom in women's boxing. Now 37, Serrano is looking forward to competing in front of her own hometown after she was forced to pull out of her December 2023 fight with Nina Menka in Puerto Rico just minutes before the fight due to an eye injury. I want to thank Erica Cruz for her choice to face me over 10 3-minute rounds and for joining me in making this statement for equality in women's boxing, Serrano said. Together we are showing all the young girls out there that they can do anything they put their mind to, and that women boxers deserve the same opportunities as men. Cruz, 18-2 with 1 draw and 4 knockouts, has gone 3-0-1 since the loss to Serrano. Fighting out of Mexico, she is looking forward to reigniting the storied boxing rivalry between Mexico and Puerto Rico and hopes to avenge her loss to Serrano. I'm very happy and excited for this great opportunity to once again face the great Puerto Rican champion Amanda Serrano, said Cruz in a statement. I'm grateful to my promoter, Universal Promotions, and to MVP for making this rematch a reality. This is the most exciting rivalry in world boxing. Mexico versus Puerto Rico means a guaranteed war. If our first fight was a colossal battle, you can't miss what will happen on January 3rd. Viva Mexico! Serrano recently signed a lifetime deal with MVP, where she will complete her boxing career before transitioning to the role of chairwoman of MVP's women's boxing initiatives. She will lead in efforts to identify, sign, develop, and market the promotion's growing roster of women athletes, although there was some speculation that Serrano's 16-year boxing career was winding down. The real deal still has at least one more fight left in her. We're honored to support Serrano's return to her natural weight class at featherweight as she fights in front of her hometown fans in Puerto Rico on Saturday, January 3rd, said MVP co-founders Jake Paul and Nikisa Badarian in a statement. Amanda is one of the most influential athletes in the world today and a true symbol of equality in the sport, and MVP is proud to stand with her as she makes her second unified world title defense under 3-minute rounds alongside Erica Cruz. This event will celebrate the pride and legacy of both Puerto Rican and women's boxing, and we look forward to sharing more details on this historic card in the coming weeks. Earlier this week, it was announced that Ellie Scottney would not be able to fight Mayeli Flores on the undercard of Jake Paul versus Gervonta Davis. So, is it possible that that fight gets rescheduled for January for Amanda's undercard. That would be a welcome addition to that show.
Well, it all depends on the nature of Ellie's injury, though we still don't know what exactly got injured. It's possible that her fight with Mayeli gets moved to that show, and it's also possible that Dina Thorsland makes her ring return on that same show. Dina Thorsland, who's targeting Shernika Johnson for all her alphabet titles, but will have a tune-up fight first.
Maybe it happens on Amanda Serrano's undercard. As far as Amanda's rematch with Erica Cruz, I've no doubts it will be a repeat of the first fight. Erica Cruz being a pressure fighter, that doesn't change much from one fight to the next. She's not likely to make any adjustments for Amanda in a rematch, and so Amanda will likely beat her in the second fight the same way she beat her in the first, by being better in the pocket, better in the exchange, and better all around.
We'll talk more about the fight as the fight date approaches.
In men's welterweight news, according to ABS-CBN, Manny Pacquiao reunites with Top Rank for a January 2026 bout.
What?
Manila. Filipino boxing icon Manny Pac-Man Pacquiao will once again be working with his old promotion, Top Rank, for his upcoming bout in January. Pacquiao will reunite with his longtime advisor, Michael Conks, and former promoter Bob Arum to hype up his next fight scheduled for January 24, 2026. His opponent has yet to be named. Pacquiao fought under the Top Rank banner from 2003 to 2018, becoming one of boxing's biggest pay-per-view attractions. The Pac-Man is coming off a majority draw against Mario Barrios last July, and a bout that marked his return to professional boxing after retiring from the sport in 2021. And not only that, the rumored opponent is supposed to be, get this, three-weight world champion Vasyl Lomachenko, who has since retired from the sport of boxing but could be making a return based on these rumors.
So I think the most immediate question would be, why would Manny Pacquiao go back to Top Rank after having not worked with them for years? What could have drove him back over there?
Well, it could be two things, 2 to 3 primarily. The first might be that the Mario Barrios fight that he just had didn't generate anything at the box office. No one anywhere reported big pay-per-view buys for that fight. No big buys means no big money for Manny.
Remember, Amazon doesn't give PBC a budget like Showtime and Fox used to, so they don't get to pony up huge guarantees for the fighters like they used to. So without that, the fighters are basically relying on the upside of the pay-per-view to get most of their money. And if there's no upside,
there's no money.
That could be the first thing that drove Manny back to Top Rank if he does end up going back to Top Rank. And the second thing, he was rumored to be facing Rolly Romero on the PBC side of things early next year, but then an order from the WBA came down for Rolly to satisfy his mandatory challenger, Shakram Giyasov, effectively throwing the monkey wrench in any plans to fight Pacquiao.
Most are interpreting that order from the WBA as retaliation from Gilberto Mendoza to the PBC, more specifically, TGB.
Tom Brown.
You might remember that a little over 2 weeks ago, Tom Brown of TGB expressed his support for Zuffa Boxing and the Muhammad Ali Reform Act.
You might remember that Gilberto Mendoza, president of the WBA, didn't like that, and he harped about it at the recent WBA convention, talking about all the favors that they've done for TGB and PBC, how they've looked out for them.
You might remember that when I talked about it here on the channel, I said that Gilberto might interpret that as a betrayal, and this might be how he retaliates. So now they're done doing favors for the PBC and their fighters. They don't want to protect them anymore. They don't want to protect Rolly from what else is out there, so they've gone ahead and ordered the Giyasov fight.
In doing so, that throws the monkey wrench. In the Pacquiao fight for Rolly, he has to fight Giyasov, because if he doesn't, they're going to strip him.
And if they strip him, there's no point in the Pacquiao fight. The whole point was giving Manny a chance to become the oldest welterweight champion. Well, he can't do that if Rolly gets stripped. There's no point in doing the fight with Rolly if Rolly doesn't have a title, and to keep it, he has to fight Giyasov. There's still the off chance that they could pay Giyasov to step aside to allow the Pacquiao fight.
But because we're now hearing these rumors about Pacquiao versus Lomachenko, Pacquiao going back to Top Rank, and Michael Conks.
Doesn't sound like they're looking to reach a step-aside deal to me. Sounds like Pacquiao is moving on. Now, going back to Top Rank, who have yet to announce who their new broadcast partner is, and the idea that Vasyl Lomachenko might unretire to swap punches with a 47-year-old Manny Pacquiao, it is all a little hard to digest, wrap my mind around. Could this really happen early next year? I don't know, but that's the story.
I didn't write it.
Of course, if Manny Pacquiao does end up boxing Vasyl Lomachenko on the Top Rank side of things after having just worked with the PBC, it'll make it that much more obvious that he's not really back to become the oldest welterweight champion, as Vasyl Lomachenko has no title for Manny to fight for at welterweight or anywhere else. It would make it that much more obvious that Manny's back to fight for money.
It's the only reason he's back. He's likely burned through a lot of his cash, and he needs more, so he's doing the only thing he knows how to do. Keep fighting. There's nothing wrong with that, you understand, but the whole idea that you were fighting Mario Barrios for legacy, or you were about to fight Rolly Romero for legacy, those are not legacy fights. Those are barely even real fighters.
That sales pitch never went over well with me. I felt that the only reason that Manny Pacquiao was back was because the welterweight division is weaker than it's ever been. So weak, you got a 46 going on 47-year-old Manny Pacquiao trying to win a title. If not for that, if it were someone else holding those belts, Manny would have stayed retired.
So if he now ends up fighting Vasyl Lomachenko, who when last we saw him was still fighting as a lightweight, it's that much more obvious. Manny's not back for legacy. He's back for another check.
Will Vasyl Lomachenko come back? Will Vasyl Lomachenko oblige him? Seems a little bit lowbrow for somebody like Vasyl Lomachenko to box a 47-year-old Manny Pacquiao for no alphabet title at all. But these are just rumors and should be treated as such. Maybe Vasyl Lomachenko is just one name that's in the running for Manny's next fight. Maybe he's talking to Top Rank, but nothing's finalized. Not yet. Don't jump off a cliff just because somebody wrote an article about it.
All we really know is that Manny's proposed fight with Rolly Romero is now on ice. Rolly has to answer to Giasov or drop the belt.
And that's all we know with an absolute certitude. I don't know what Rolly Romero's gonna do. I wouldn't be surprised if he drops that belt and moves up, or maybe fights Barrios for his.
Or fights Ryan in a rematch. Suddenly, fighting Ryan Garcia again becomes Rolly Romero's best option. Drop the belt, go to Golden Boy, run it back with Ryan.
What about all those reports indicating that Fundora versus Thurman will now happen as the co-main event to Manny Pacquiao's next fight? What about all of that? We all know that Sebastian suffered some kind of an injury, and now reports indicate his fight with Keith could land on Manny's undercard, but that's provided that Manny's undercard is at the PBC. What if it isn't?
These are conflicting reports where it's difficult to know what's really going on.
So when there's so much that you don't know, just focus on what you do. These reports of Fundora versus Thurman landing on Pacquiao's undercard seem to rely on Manny fighting Rolly, and now we know that in all likelihood, Manny's not gonna fight Rolly.
Rolly's gotta fight Giasov.
Now maybe if Manny has a rematch with Mario on the PBC side of things, maybe then Sebastian's fight lands on Manny's undercard.
Big maybe.
Caveat is we're not hearing rumors about a Mario Barrios rematch. We're hearing rumors about a Lomachenko fight, about a move back to Top Rank. That's what's out there right now. So what that essentially means is that Fundora versus Thurman is still in the air, and we don't know if and when that's gonna happen, since it's all centered around Manny Pacquiao's next fight.
It's a fucking mess.
My promoter, he would be my favorite promoter because he's my manager now, but he was honest, which is hard to find in boxing. I know Frank's my promoter, but also Frank looks after everyone else that, he looks after Danny. Like, Danny Dubois is fighting for what? IBF Eliminator. Like, one of the fights, then he sort of lost, but then he went and fought for WBA. Then, he's getting all these opportunities because Frank loves Dubois. Frank loves him, and fair enough, because he's the one that's helped him, throughout his career and brought him up, and Frank loves Tyson. I think Frank, we work together, and I don't think he has the same love that he has for other fighters, I'm from New Zealand. I'm not meant to be on the circuit of heavyweight featherweight boxing. If I look at it and break it down, he got sick 2 days before the fight, or a day before the fight, 2 days before the fight. Martin Piccoli stepped in, had a different fight, and then he went on to fight Usyk. And I know that's for he had the other belt and it was the unification, undisputed, but listen, boxing, for me, sometimes things that happen just go, something like that just happened. So we have no, as fighters, you got no control. And if you don't have a promoter really wanting you to do well, you're not going to get the opportunities the other fighters get. David Higgins was my promoter. He would be my favorite promoter because he's my manager now, but he was honest.
Sounds a lot like Joseph Parker is just now connecting the dots I already connected months ago when Daniel Dubois pulled out of his fight with Joseph. I said it then. I don't think Daniel is sick, and I don't think Daniel is injured. What I think is they looked at that Joseph Parker fight and said, this is more trouble than it's worth. Why go in there and do the dance with Joseph and maybe get banged up and maybe we win or maybe we don't, when if we pull out now, we can get Usyk back in the ring. We can fight for undisputed in a bigger fight for bigger money. That's what I think happened, and that's what I think Joseph is just now realizing, that he doesn't get the priority that Frank's other fighters get, even though Frank promotes him.
Fighters don't have all the time in the world to sit around mulling over different scenarios like we do here on the channel, because the fighter has to focus on fighting. And that's what Joseph has been focused on. That's likely why he's been winning.
Because he's been focused. He's on a great run of form.
But because he's been focused on his form, there are a lot of things that are happening around him that are going right over his head. Daniel wasn't really sick, and that's not why he really pulled out. Frank might be promoting you, but not to the extent that he's promoting other fighters like Daniel Dubois.
Daniel's fighting in an IBF final eliminator coming right off a knockout loss to Usyk. So what does that tell you? And there is a little bit more to this. What's obvious is that Frank would give Daniel Dubois priority over Joseph. What's not so obvious is that Joseph isn't supposed to be here. That all those months ago, when Turkey made the fight between Joseph and Wilder, he thought Wilder was going to win.
That's why he made it. He thought that he could feed Joseph Parker to Deontay Wilder in the interim while they build the Joshua fight. What he didn't expect is that Joseph would dominate Wilder, that Joseph would win.
And think about who they put Joseph in there with after that. They put him in there with Zhilei Zhang, ladies and gentlemen. Do you think they were doing Joseph any favors, putting him in there with an oversized Chinaman? Near as I can tell, Joseph Parker is being castigated, and he's just now realized that. He's being punished for winning fights he was not intended to win. He wasn't supposed to make it this far.
So now he's fighting Fabio Wardley.
In what is a more winnable fight than the Wilder fight was, or the Zhang fight was.
And credit to Fabio for taking this fight on.
But Joseph Parker only got that opportunity to fight Fabio by defying the odds, by winning fights he was not intended to win. Now ask yourself, who do you think Frank wants to win? Joseph Parker, the New Zealander, or Fabio Wardley, the Brit?